in the church. They should render some service to the church. For example, several years ago, I called a widow in my church and asked her to visit a lady whose husband's funeral service I had just conducted. The death had left the lady without family or friends, and I asked the widow to visit her because she would understand the woman's need. She had been through it herself. They became warm friends and grew in their relationship to God because of it. A widow can and should serve in some way in the church. Now, verse 12. But the strength, and actually verse 11 for some reason. Um, but the younger widows refuse, for when they have begun to wax wanton against Christ, they will marry, having damnation because they have cast off their first faith. First Timothy chapter 5, verse 11 and 12. The younger widow is likely to want to remarry, and that's all right as I see it. But notice that there is the danger of remarrying for the wrong reason. There is the danger that she will forget all about her faith. The church is to be very careful and test the young widows also, verse 13. And with all they learn to be idle, wandering about from house to house, and not only idle, but tattlers also, and busybodies, speaking things which they ought not. First Timothy chapter 5, verse 13. In other words, they carry garbage from one place to another. The garbage is gossip. They go about speaking things which they ought not. There is the danger for the younger widows who has been relieved of the responsibility of being a wife and homemaker, perhaps having no children, that she will become a regular gadabout. Verse 14, I will therefore that the young women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. First Timothy chapter 5 and verse 14. The woman is the homemaker. In this whole section, Paul is giving instruction about the behavior of men and women who are in the church. He is stressing that these relationships should be on the highest level as a testimony before the world, that they give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. Verse 15, for some are already turned aside after Satan. First Timothy chapter 5 and verse 15. They were not genuine believers, of course. If any man or woman that believeth have widows, let them relieve them, and let not the church be charged, that it may relieve them that are widows indeed. First Timothy chapter 5 verse 16. Each family should support its own widows, so that the church can concentrate on the widows who are without family and are in real need. Verse 17. Let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine. First Timothy chapter 5 and verse 17. The early church paid their teachers, and a good teacher, I think, was paid a little bit more. Verse 18, for the scripture saith, thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn, and the laborer is worthy of his reward. First Timothy chapter 5 and verse 18. Paul is quoting here from Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 4, and Luke chapter 10 and verse 7. I have known very few preachers who I thought were money lovers. Most men are in the ministry for a different motive than that. You are not going to hurt the preacher if you give him a generous offering. Be generous also to the visiting Bible teacher if his ministry is a blessing to you. And that concludes that section. Now we're going to move on to the next.